On today's show, I am answering all of your mailbag questions. What can the Rangers do in left field? What is left? And how good will this team be next year? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. We are so close to 1,500 subscribers. I think last I checked, we were 3 away. So if you want to get me a Christmas present, just click that subscribe button, and if you have already, well, maybe you have a second account, or you can go make one, just to give me a very nice little even round number serotonin boost on that 1,500 subscriber mark. But today's show, we are answering all of your mailbag questions. I feel like there's still a lot of questions around this team, what they're going to do. But first, we have some important news to get to, Rangers related. Congratulations are due to the Rangers' top prospect, Evan Carter, who got married this weekend. Congratulations. I think the woman he got married to is his high school sweetheart and dating for a long, long time. So congratulations to the happy couple who hopefully are not listening to this on your honeymoon. Maybe you can listen to this some other time. Also, happy birthday to Jose Leclerc, who turned 29 years old today. Now, enough of that nonsense. Let's get into your questions, starting with... We're going to start with a sad one because it needs to be addressed. This is from Matthew Allen. Wasn't intended to be sad at the time, but it ended up being sad. Matthew asks, what kind of deal would you give Gallo if they sign him? If it was me, I would give him a similar deal to Andrew Heaney's 2 years with incentives with an opt-out after 1. Well, that would have been nice, but unfortunately, my son is not coming home this year for Christmas or for the regular season either. Joseph Nicholas Gallo signed a 1-year deal worth $11 million with the Minnesota Twins. Shout out to former Rangers assistant GM Thad Levine for taking in our large adult son. If he couldn't go here, I'm glad he's going somewhere where it'll be a nice place for him to bounce back. I really do think that's a good fit for them and for Joey. I am objectively pissed that he's not here. I thought that would have been a very easy slam dunk, 1-year bounce back deal. Just come back, figure yourself out, go to a place where you feel comfortable, where you know the organization. There have been a few changes. There'd be a new manager, but you'd still know, well, most of the people on the team. Still I think it's a great deal for him and a real bummer. But there are 3 guys. There are a lot of left fielders that kept going off the board, a lot of different corner outfielders that are going off the board, but there are some guys there. I think my top 3 in this order, and this is the deals that I would sign those guys to. Michael Conforto, number 1, 2 years, $28 million. I think that second year might end up being a mutual option or a team option, maybe even a player option, but I think that's what I would sign Conforto to. Really like him. Still some questions coming off a year missed with an injury, but a really good player. Number 2 on my list is, I think someone else asked about a Jurickson Profar reunion. I would sign him to a 2-year, $30 million deal. I feel really good about him. He's kind of figured himself out defensively in left field. Some of the advanced metrics don't like him as much, but one of the things that I noticed on his Baseball Savant page that really stuck out to me is his arm strength in the 67th percentile. That was something that I was really shocked to see because of the shoulder injuries that completely derailed his career. He just could not make throws at second base. And that's why he ended up moving to left field. But he's done a good job of figuring it out there. Doesn't strike out a whole lot, walks a whole lot. That was always something that was his strength coming up as a prospect offensively. And does not chase at all. Hits the ball decently hard. A really good on base. Was the leadoff hitter for the Padres for most of the year. I think even later into the playoffs, he was still their leadoff guy. Plays left field. Could be a really nice stopgap and a emotionally very nice moment for me. If Joey isn't coming home, then my other prospect son could come home. And last on my list, third choice, AJ Pollock, 1 year, $13 million deal. I did a crossover that'll be in your feeds on Friday for our Festivus episode. If you're new to the show, the last 3 years, I think, Jason Burke and I, host of Locked On A's, have done a Festivus episode where we complain about things and choose feats of strength. It's just a nice, fun, goofy episode. We invited the Locked On White Sox and Locked On Tigers hosts to join us this year. Very fun episode that'll be in your feeds on Friday. But I talked to Nick of Locked On White Sox, and he said he thought AJ Pollock had plenty left in him. He is a little bit on the older side, but the White Sox kept putting him in different positions, not giving him a consistent playing time and not a consistent place in the lineup. So I think that might have contributed. He had an opt-out this year, and they're a little surprised that he took it, but I think that could be a pretty good deal. Next question comes to us from Sean Daniel. Will Simple Man blare through the Globe Life Field when deGrom pitches? Well, I don't know if it's when he's technically pitching more as when he's warming up, but yes, and it's going to be glorious. And I absolutely cannot freaking wait to see him on the hill wearing Rangers paraphernalia and making people who play the Rangers look really bad at hitting. Next question comes to us from Harrison Alexander. I really like this question. Who's a less talked about prospect that you are personally really high on and doesn't get enough attention you think he deserves? Well, this one is a pretty obvious answer for me. It is Emiliano Teodo, who is one of the more fascinating Rangers prospects. I don't know that I'm not going to put him in my top 10. I think he's definitely going to crack my top 30. I think he did at mid-season. But he is a absolutely fascinating starting pitcher for now. We'll see how long that lasts. I think they should stick with him as a starting pitcher. But he is a right-hander listed at 6'1", 165 pounds out of the Dominican. He is 21 years old. This was his first full season of regular season baseball, through 84 and a third innings, 115 strikeouts, 44 walks, 7 home runs, a 3.09 ERA in Down East as a 21-year-old. He has got a remarkable arsenal. Starts with a fastball that sits in the upper 90s, regularly in the triple-digit range. Doesn't have a whole lot of command of it, but still has some decent life to it as well. His second pitch, which is actually probably his best pitch, is his curveball, which is in the low 90s. Yes, you heard me right. A curveball in the 90s. Also has better command of that than his fastball. It is unreal. The stat lines that he put up, just go look at some of the random stat lines for his starts. Would be something like 4 and a third innings and 5 walks and 12 strikeouts and no hits. It's just, he put up some insane lines. I'm really excited for him. I think he's got some tremendous stuff. I hope he can stick as a starter, but if not, man, he's going to be one heck of a deadly reliever. So thanks for that question, Harrison Alexander. Coming up, we're going to get into what the bullpen's going to look like, and some interesting trades that I think the Rangers could consider making. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and all kinds of other stuff. We have got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, which I'm assuming you do since you're listening to this one, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, our next question comes to us from Texas Rangers Fans UK. He says, what do you think the opening day bullpen looks like, and what should we expect from Sam Huff this season? He only has one minor league option left. Well, for the first part, I actually did an episode on this I think it was last week, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, about what the Rangers should do with their bullpen, kind of a deep dive analysis on that. So go check out that episode for that answer, because it was a long-winded, it would be a long time before I could finish that, answer that question. But for Sam Huff, I think he starts the year in AAA. I think he's the Rangers' third catcher at the moment, and a lot of it depends on the health of Mitch Garver, which I think we're going to say that about a lot of things this year. But I think he starts the year in AAA, getting everyday at-bats. The bat is almost major league ready. I still think it could use just a little bit more seasoning, but defensively, I think he's fine and pretty solid as the Rangers' third catcher at the moment. When he's out of minor league options next year, the Rangers will not have Mitch Garver on the books. He will be a free agent. Maybe they'll re-sign him, maybe not. But I think that is when he kind of steps into maybe a catching tandem with Jonah Heim. But next question comes to us from Louis Mayer. He asked, if the Rangers need pitching depth, why not take a chance on our old friend Cole Hamels? Well, I think maybe that'd be fine, but it's been a while since Cole Hamels has pitched. He hasn't pitched since 2020, so it has been 2 seasons since he pitched. The last time he did pitch, even that year, he only threw in 1 game. Just 1 game. That was for the Atlanta Braves. Went 3 1/3 innings, had an 8.10 ERA because he got blown up, and that was pretty much it. He is going to be 38 years old, 39 actually, 39 years. This is going to be his age 39 season, I believe. Yeah, he turns 39 2 days after Christmas, so he's still a bit on the older side. The last full season that he pitched, he showed he still had something left in the tank at age 35 with the Cubs. He had a 3.81 ERA, which was really darn good for them, and that was just half a season after the Rangers traded him. He had a 4.72 ERA in 2018 with the Rangers. Then he got traded to the Cubs and had a 2.36 ERA. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm not mad about it. I'm definitely not still bitter about it, but I don't know. Rangers could take a flyer, but they have depth that I would trust. I would trust Glenn Otto more than him. I would trust Cole Reagans more than Cole Hamels at this point. But I don't think it could hurt taking a flyer on him, seeing what he's got left. He'd definitely start the season in AAA. Just kind of bring him to camp, see what he's got, reunite him with the other Cole that was drafted in the first round when the Rangers had Cole Hamels at his peak. I think that could be pretty interesting. But I don't know. Couldn't hurt anything, but yeah. Anyway, next question comes to us from Thomas Knox. He asked, how about the question on the Rangers homepage? Could the Rangers have the AL's top rotation? Well, they could, but they won't. That belongs to the Yankees. The Yankees signed Carlos Rodon, so that dream is also dead of adding the top 2 pitchers, well, 2 of the top 3 pitchers on the market this offseason. So the Yankees rotation looks like this. It's Garrett Cole, then Carlos Rodon, then Nestor Cortez, then at number 4, you have Luis Severino, and your number 5 is Frankie Montas. That's probably, if not the best rotation in baseball, then definitely in the American League. In terms of depth, it's right up there with the Astros, who just have hellacious depth. It's very upsetting. But in terms of the AL West, I think the Rangers could end up with the best rotation in the American League West. Here's what their main competition looks like for the Mariners. It's Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, Robbie Ray, which, again, insane that the Mariners have a Cy Young as their number 3, but that's kind of what he was. Just had a really, really nice season. Number 4 in their rotation is George Kirby and Marco Gonzalez anchoring that out at the end. In the Angels, they have Shohei Ohtani and 4 lefties, which I think is interesting, but they're all pretty good. Tyler Anderson just signed that 3-year deal with them. Patrick Sandoval, Jose Suarez, Reed Detmers, all of those young guys showed a lot of promise. Sandoval showed, I think, the most promise. Suarez was pretty solid, too. Even Reed Detmers had a no-hitter. He was really solid last year. So I think they're going to be much improved, but it's the Angels, so something is going to go drastically wrong. Anderson, I hope is healthy and good. He looked really, really good with the Dodgers last year. Obviously, Ohtani is Ohtani. He's incredible and had a 6th place finish in Cy Young voting. By the way, if you're curious about what it would take for the Rangers to get Ohtani, that was my Friday episode, so go check that out. That was a lot of fun. The Astros, they have Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Lance McCullers Jr. as their number 3, Luis Garcia, and in their 5th spot, it's either going to be Jose Urquidy or Hunter Brown. I think Hunter Brown's probably going to end up winning it. We saw him make his Major League debut against the Rangers, and he was freaking fantastic, and that's deeply, deeply upsetting. But the Rangers have Jacob deGrom, Martin Perez, John Gray, Andrew Heaney, and Jake Odorizzi. I think that is up there. Definitely they have the best starter in baseball, so definitely the American League. A lot of it depends on the health of these guys in the back 3 in Gray, Heaney, and Odorizzi. Well, not as much Odorizzi, but more just Gray and Heaney and how well they perform, and if Martin Perez is that guy he was last year, or if he kind of reverts to old Martin Perez. So it's entirely possible. I still think I would give the edge to the Astros, maybe the Mariners just a little bit more. But it depends. The Rangers have a really, really improved rotation, and it is definitely going to be one of the stronger points of this team, which is insane given where they were last year. Next question comes to us from Matthew Allen. He said, I've seen Alex Verdugo floated as a name the Rangers could acquire. What do you think it would take to get him, and how well would he fit in this Rangers lineup? It would take too much. And by too much, I mean much of anything. I don't love Alex Verdugo. I just really don't think that he is going to be worth it. I also don't think the Red Sox are going to be super anxious to trade him. He's been fine, one of their better offensive players for the last couple of years. His only really, really great year with Boston was the 2020 shortened season. He had 6 home runs that year and an 844 OPS. Hasn't had an OPS in the 800s with Boston since then. It had a 777 OPS in 2021, and this year a 732 OPS. Like it's not that great. It's not that great, and it's not worth trading pieces to acquire him, I don't think. And I don't think that about a lot of corner outfield bats. I don't think the Rangers should be looking at that. There is another one that we'll get to that's technically is proposed to be a corner outfield bat. I don't know that they're actually a corner outfielder, but I just don't love that deal, and I don't think he's that great. So not to poop on your parade, but just to poop just a little bit, because you're not the only person who I've seen suggesting that, and I really don't like that idea, and I don't think it's smart, and I don't think the Rangers would be actually pursuing it. Next question comes to us from Luca deGrom. How much more money do you expect them to add to this year's payroll? Well, I'd say about $15 million-ish for a bat, and then maybe $5 million for a reliever. So $20 million more to next year's payroll for 2023. Currently, the Rangers sit at $150.65 million in terms of overall payroll. That puts them in 11th place behind the Rockies. If they added $20 million exactly, that put them at $170 million, or $170.65 million if you want to be super particular. That would have them in 6th place in terms of overall payroll, behind the Padres and ahead of the Braves. Coming up, we're going to get into some questions about the Rangers offense, the depth of their home run hitting potential, and doing something that the Rangers haven't ever done in franchise history. But first, this word from our sponsors. So the next question comes to us from Marvelous Luca. He says, if we can stay healthy, the Rangers could possibly have 6 to 7 guys hit at least 25 home runs this season. Does that sound about right to you? And he said, I'm counting on them adding another big bat to left field. So when I first saw this, I thought, that feels a little aggressive. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. And then I started writing out the names. Corey Seager, yeah, did that this year. Marcus Semien, yep, did that this year. Nathaniel Lowe, Adolis Garcia. They already had 4 this year. I mean, Garver, if he was healthy, he was about on, I think, 25 homer pace. He had 10 home runs in like 50-something games. So, yeah, I think that is. So you got those 5 guys. That's 5 right now. The Rangers already had 4. And if they had 5, that would tie the most 25 plus home run hitters on a single team that the Rangers have ever had in franchise history. They did that twice, once in 2011 and once in 2005, which, by the way, that 2005 team had some extreme depth. And that team also had 7 total players hit 20 or more home runs. They had catcher Rob Barajas, Mark Teixeira, Alfonso Soriano, Michael Young, Hank Blaylock, Kevin Mensch, and David DeLucci at DH. By the way, every single guy who's listed as a starter for their position on Baseball Reference hit at least 16 home runs. That was just absolutely insane depth. They did finish below 500 because they had a typical Rangers pitching staff of 2 guys who were decent and a bunch of trash. The 2 guys who were decent were Kenny Rogers and Chris Young. And then Chan-Ho Park, Ryan Drees, and Pedro Astacio. So, yeah. And 2011 team was just insanely deep as well. But the Rangers have never had 6 or even 7 25 homer guys. But you add someone like Josh Young, who I think could hit 25 home runs this year. I think that's definitely possible. He's shown an uptick in the power playing in games the last couple of years in the minor leagues, and we saw him, even though he was struggling a little bit to hit at the major league level, he was still getting his bombs, which was pretty nice. So I think he could hit 25 homers next year. And so they signed Michael Conforto, and he hits 25 bombs. That's 7 guys right there. I think that's entirely possible, not out of the question. And well, Jonah Heim was on 20 homer pace this year, so like it's not entirely impossible. He had 16 home runs this past year, and he fell off a cliff in the second half. Only played 127 games overall, but I think that's entirely possible for them to have 6 guys to break their record, have more guys hit 25 plus home runs than they have had in years past, which would be really, really fun, I think. Anyway, next question comes to us from Brandon Strelitz. He says, with Gallo off the table, what do you think of signing Conforto and trading for Luis Arraez from the Twins, who is supposedly on the trade block? Could probably get him for a package of Dunning and Foscue. He would be an amazing leadoff hitter and could play left field. And the proposed lineup he has here is Arraez leading off in left, Simeon, Seager, Garcia, Lowe, Garver DHing, Conforto in right, Young, and then Heim hitting ninth with Garcia playing center field, which, interesting. But I like the idea, but I think your trade package is definitely lacking. It would take a lot more to get this guy. He is very young. He is under team control for a long time. The first time he becomes a free agent will be 2026. He is going to be first-year arbitration eligible this next year. He is 26 years old. He got MVP votes. He won a batting title. He was an all-star this year for the first time, and a Silver Slugger at not the DH. It must have been the utility position, I think, is what he wanted at, because he played a bunch of different positions. He hit 316 this year with a 375 on base. His career average in 4 seasons at the big league level. Career average of 314 and a career on base of 374. Not a big power guy. Had a career high 8 home runs this year, but 31 doubles. Kind of a bigger guy. Plays more second base and first base. Has played a little bit of left field. 48 games out there. Only done that in 2 different seasons. Did not do that this year. Played in left field 27 games in 2021, and then played in left field for 21 games, only started 18 of those in 2019. So I don't know how much I'm playing him in left field. I don't love that idea. I think he's pretty decent defensively at first base. So if you're wanting to bring him in, you're probably moving him to first base, not left field. I don't think that's going to go very well, especially with Garcia as the everyday center fielder and Conforto in right. Like, that's not a good defensive outfield. It's maybe a little bit below average, but I think a trade package for him, I think it's definitely an interesting look. He would be a great leadoff hitter. I totally agree there. But a trade package, I think that it would need to include something like Dustin Harris. Start off with those 2 guys that you mentioned, Dane Dunning and Justin Foscue. Then you add in Dustin Harris, Mitch Bratt, Yuri Rodriguez, and Thomas Saggese. Then I think you're talking. I don't think that Thad Levine is going to just let his young all-star with 3 years of control go for a mediocre number 5 starter and a DH prospect who is not super duper highly thought of around the league. I think Foscue could be a pretty decent major leaguer, but he's going to have to hit for a lot of power and just hit everywhere. And that's a tall order, which I think he could do. But adding some of these other guys, I think, could get that deal done. I don't know that I'd do it, but it's definitely an interesting thought that the Rangers could pursue. And I think that would be a pretty decent idea. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of guys who I would trade for that are corner outfielders. I mean, there's been a lot of whisperings and mumbles because it seems like the Rangers have their starting rotation set. So a Pablo Lopez trade that we all thought was probably going to happen, or at least a lot of us thought was going to happen this offseason, isn't happening. And the Rangers, their only needs that are left are really corner outfield bat and a reliever. And I'm not trading for any reliever really pretty much ever, unless you're, in the middle of a pennant chase and you are one reliever short, that's when you trade for a reliever who's having a great season and you do your best and feel decent about it. But right now where the Rangers are that's the reason that I wasn't advocating for a lot of these guys in the corner outfield on like longer deals or trading for guys like Luis Arraez or or Verdugo or some of the other guys that were out there, is that I really, really like what the Rangers have in terms of their corner outfield prospects. I think Ezekiel Duran could end up playing there. He could end up starting there this year. I really do think that, because he's really, really athletic, has a huge arm, is very quick, and I think the bat is going to play at a higher level than Bubba Thompson, what he is giving the Rangers this year. Probably. It's entirely possible that Bubba could continue to improve and break out, but I really, really like what they have there. I also really, really like Aaron Zavala. It's going to be a little bit longer for him to make his Major League debut, but I think he's probably going to end up in my top 5 Rangers prospects. That is just how much I like him. I really, really was impressed by what he did. He's going to be fine defensively in left, but he's going to be kind of what I imagined, what I hoped for Willie Calhoun, a guy who hits like 280-ish. He's probably going to have a higher on base than Willie. Willie showed a little bit more pop, but I think somewhere in the guy who hits 280 with an on base in like the 340 to 360 range and hits 15 to 25 home runs a year while being just fine in left. I really, really think that has a lot of value, and I think that's what Aaron Zavala could be for the Rangers. He suffered an injury in the Arizona Fall League, which, again, I don't know why he was playing in the Arizona Fall League, because he got plenty of at-bats. He's fine. But he is going to be out until, I think, towards the end of May. So his Major League debut, which if he was healthy, I would have thought he might have made by the end of this year. I think it's going to be more likely around mid-season in 2024 rather than the end of 2023. Sorry, I'm getting my years all confused and what have you. But Evan Carter is also the Rangers' top prospect, which I just talked about. He's probably a center fielder, but if Leote figures it out and is decent offensively, I don't think that Carter's ceiling defensively is anywhere near Leote's, and moving him into left field would still be a really, really great option for him. It's offensively, he has the offense of a corner outfielder. He has that kind of value while being able to take over defensively in center field and be, I think, at least above average. So the Rangers have some guys, and also Dustin Harris, who I just mentioned. It's been a little bit of a ride, him transitioning to the outfield, but he is a fairly athletic guy. He has got a lot of potential, power potential as well. He's got a little bit of a hole in his swing that he needs to fix. But yeah, and even Justin Foscue, who I think could fit in left field as well. I think that might end up being where he sticks, because he is right now a first or second baseman. Maybe he could play a little first, a little DH. But those guys, I think, are really, really the top end of the Rangers prospects. I think they are going to make an impact. And also, if you want to see Josh Smith out there somewhere every day, I think left field is also an option for him. So the Rangers have young guys who I believe in as capable everyday starters. So going and trading from prospect depth to get one of those guys, I'm not as high on. I think you use your prospect depth to trade for guys that are more top end. I think that's where the Rangers should look to capitalize on their prospect depth, because they don't have a lot of future stars in their system, and you need stars. There are 2 ways to get them, well, 3 ways to get them. You can either develop them, you can either trade for them, or you can sign them in free agency. The Rangers have signed a lot of them in free agency, but you can't get all of them that way. And it seems like the Rangers aren't doing a super great job of developing them internally, which, again, is very hard to do for any team, not just the Rangers. So I think mortgaging that depth to get someone, star potential, like I was talking about Corbin Burnes, probably not Burnes, maybe a Bieber or some other very, very good player at the top end of a rotation type, should be the way that the Rangers mortgage that depth for star power, as opposed to another okay to mid player. Anyway, that was a long-winded way of ranting of a question that was not particularly asked, but I wanted to answer anyway, because it felt like a very, very nice moment. Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. I'll be back on Wednesday, probably doing a little bit of a Christmas shopping list, and then on Friday we are going to 3 days a week starting now. If there is some Rangers news, and I've already made the Wednesday episode, then I will post and react to that, whatever it may be. But guys are dropping like flies, so I'm thinking if nothing gets done by Friday, then it'll probably be January by the time the Rangers make whatever moves they have to make left, or maybe it'll even end up being in February. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for your mailbag questions. I'll be doing another mailbag episode again next Monday, but that'll do it for today's show, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.